Welcome to the All Language Resources channel where we review different resources to help you learn a new language. Learning a new writing system is intimidating, but it can also be one of the more rewarding aspects of language learning. This is particularly true when learning Chinese or Japanese, as the vast number of characters and the varied writing systems can seem overwhelming, especially if you're used to something as drastically different as the Latin alphabet. So if you're currently looking for resources on how to write in Chinese or Japanese, you may want to check out Skritter. Skritter is an app that aims to help learners read and write in Chinese and Japanese. It teaches users how to write characters and vocabulary along with their meaning, pronunciation, and a variety of practice activities to help you remember what you learn. In this video, we will have a full review of the app, its pros and its cons. We'll also rate the app in terms of quality, thoroughness, and value. If you decide to try it out, there is a link in the description box which can give you 10% discount on any subscription plan. Using Skritter for the first time, you'll first have to select a deck to study. There are quite a few decks to choose from, but we'll take a closer look at them later in the review. Decks are organized in categories. These can be based on character type, related vocabulary or phrases, or simply by lesson if a deck comes from a textbook or course. You'll have the opportunity to learn words in a category and then test yourself on them. Skritter keeps track of your progress and helps you review what you've learned. For this review, let's take a crack at the Learn Hiragana deck, and let's see what it's like to learn to write with Skritter. Perhaps the most useful part of the app is its ability to teach new characters and vocabulary with mnemonics and handwriting recognition. This is an example of how the app uses mnemonics to teach new characters. It pairs a character a similar image in the phrase that contains the character's sound. This feature was well executed and genuinely helpful. Actually being able to see an illustrated picture using the character was particularly helpful. The next step in learning a new character is where the handwriting recognition comes into play. You'll be presented with an image of the character and an animated blue dot that traces the correct stroke order. You progress through the stage by tracing the character with your finger. You'll then have to retrace the character without the blue dot, and finally, without the outline at all. The mechanics of the handwriting exercises are smooth and mostly accurate. Physically tracing the character is also useful for memorization. But does learning on your phone translate to pen and paper? After practicing exclusively on the app for a couple of days, you will be surprised at how natural the transition from screen to paper will be. You'll also be glad that it will not be too difficult to remember what you'd learned without the app. Let's now take a look at the layout of the app. Skritter's design and interface are both done really well. It's clear that the developers put time into creating a satisfying and engaging user experience. The layout of the app is pretty simple. There are 4 tabs to navigate between Home, Decks, Progress, and My Words. We'll look at each individually and go through their individual features. The Home tab is where you'll find any decks you've recently practiced, the cards that you're due to practice, and some extra review activities. The Due Cards button at the top of the screen is part of Skritter's spaced repetition system. The system uses an algorithm to make sure you're practicing material efficiently and committing it to long-term memory before you forget it. Once you've started using Skritter regularly, this is likely the first place you'll go in the app to practice whatever's due for review. It's important that you pace yourself with Skritter, as the number of due cards can easily exceed 100 if you take on too much new material at once. Review questions test your ability to write characters and words, define them, and recall their pronunciation. This is one area in which the app stands out from other more simple flashcard apps. It makes use of active recall, where you're required to prove you remember a character by creating it yourself. This is a much more effective way of testing memorization than simply asking, "Did you remember the character?" The effect is study time that's more efficient. Continuous and time attack buttons are additional review methods and particularly useful if you've completed the practice suggested by the spaced repetition system but would like to continue studying without taking a bunch of new information. Continuous review is Skritter's Zen-like review experience where you'll get non-stop practice activities until you decide you'd like to stop. The app notices which characters you have trouble with while you practice and adjusts the cards accordingly. Get something wrong and you'll see it more frequently. The time attack review activity is still in beta, but it adds some competitive excitement to the otherwise solitary and self-paced learning experience. The goal here is to complete 20 items, characters or words as fast as you can. There are time penalties for hints and leaderboards show top scores. You'll need to be comfortable with an entire deck to participate. Moving on to the Decks tab, this section of the app is where you'll find a bunch of different study decks to choose from. There's a good amount of material here. Some deck titles are Learning Japanese Through Music, Japanese Slang, Kanji in Context, the Genki series, and more. The majority of study decks are catered to the beginner and lower intermediate learner, but there are also some that are slightly more advanced. You also have the option to create your own decks for a more customized experience. As for the Progress tab, this section is pretty straightforward. There are no fancy graphs, but you'll be able to see your daily and all-time study history, as well as activity feed that contains information on each practice activity you've recently taken part in. This section of the app is still in beta, and maybe this is why it wasn't completely accurate. In any case, this feature doesn't have huge impact on the learning experience. The last tab we will look at is My Words. Here you'll be able to see a list of words you've learned with Skritter along with a bunch of nifty information. If you want to know more about any word you've studied, this is the place. Clicking on a word displays extra information such as definition, an example sentence, audio, and your study stats with that word. Now that we have pretty much covered what Skritter can do, the question that begs an answer is, Skritter on web or mobile? Which can provide a better learning experience? There's really no contest here. Skritter is best in the mobile app. It's nice that Skritter will work on all of your devices and that you won't lose any progress by switching between them. But the experience in the browser version just isn't as satisfying. For one, it requires that you use your mouse instead of your finger, which isn't nearly as natural. The aesthetic also isn't as nice in the web version. In addition to the main learning and review activities, there are a few fun extras and ways to customize your learning experience. You can decide whether to show or hide definitions and Remaji while practicing, turn fancy streak effects on or off, opt for automatically advancing cards, and much more. Here are two more interesting options in the app. One is raw squigs. Enabling this option turns off stroke snapping, meaning you'll see characters exactly how you drew them. It's helpful to enable this after a while to see how closely you're able to match characters. The handwriting recognition can sometimes be overly generous. There's also a rawest squigs option, where there's no stroke recognition. You'll complete the entire character by yourself and then self-grade. It can be humbling at first. The other interesting option is the eccentric mode. On the web version, it displays messages on the canvas while you're studying to offer encouragement. It also generates random quotes at the bottom of the page, which are indeed of an eccentric nature. There were spotted references to Monty Python, Rick and Morty, and Dragon Ball Z, and goofy quips like, "What if this weren't a hypothetical question?" This doesn't exactly add a whole lot of learning value to the app, but you would appreciate that they're trying to inject some humor and lightness into the experience. At this point, let us talk about pricing. After a free 7-day trial, a paid subscription is required for access to the full range of content on Skritter. It includes access to Chinese and Japanese. Skritter also offers a guest experience to users who aren't paying for an active subscription. This free version of the app includes access to a limited number of study decks. The free version of the app, paired with the 7-day trial, makes it easy to try it out for yourself without the risk of wasting any money. You can also save 10% on any subscription plan by signing up through the link found at the description box below. So, some final thoughts. When it comes to learning to write in Chinese or Japanese, Skritter stands far above the competition. It isn't free though, and some won't find the subscription price worth it. Some common grievances with the app are that the handwriting technology doesn't recognize cursive characters, making it less appealing for more advanced learners, and that the review options lack enough customizability. Overall, Skritter is recommended to learners who are serious about learning to write in Japanese or Chinese. Some people will prefer practicing with pen and paper, which is a fine option, but Skritter's spaced repetition system makes your time spent with the app much more efficient. For Skritter's overall final rating, the app gets 4.2 out of 5 stars. The breakdown of this rating is as follows. For quality, the app gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. The app has a great design and quality content. The handwriting recognition isn't perfect, but it's rarely inaccurate. For thoroughness, the app gets 4 out of 5 stars. It sets out to teach reading and writing and does a great job, but some additional explanations would be nice. For value, the app gets 4 out of 5 stars. The spaced repetition system makes practice efficient and worthwhile, but some people may only want to pay a month at a time. Looking for more resources to help you reach your language learning goals? You can find links to our favorite resources for learning Chinese and Japanese in the description box below. If you enjoyed this review, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. And if you're looking for more information on any particular resource, be sure to check out our website, alllanguageresources.com, where we've tested out and written about hundreds of language learning resources.